Hey, and welcome to another video on my channel. I haven't done one for a while, I've been really busy. But this one's a special one. Shout out for my nephew Charlie. And he wanted some tips on how to get started well, or when you're getting started in Stormbound, what to do, what to focus on. So I'll do my best. I've been playing a little while. Um, as you can see, I've been invested quite a lot of time. So what I'll talk about to start off with is get your income. So first things first, make sure you're collecting your daily bonuses. These little build-ups help because they collect things, and also complete your challenges. I would say it's worth using a couple of adverts to deal with some of the more challenging challenges that just take you too much time to complete. I like to do the challenges every day because I think they're fun, but not everyone will. Uh, and then you want to start building a deck. The best thing to do, if you haven't done it already, is to complete the campaigns, because that gets you a lot of your basic cards, and then you can work from there. Now, the temptation is, when you get going, is to try and use lots of really expensive cards, because they do really good things, and they're just exciting. And I would say it's not worth it. So if you look at my hand here, this is one of my favourites I'm using at the moment. Obviously everything's level 5, so it's a bit different. But this is a bunch of cards that will work well together. They complement each other. But as you can see, a lot of them are actually low level cards. There's not a lot of legendary cards in there. That one's I suppose those ones are, but a lot of them are just common cards. And you really want to try and level up your cards to get them up to as high a level as you can. So trying to focus on a few is best. Now that isn't easy because you don't get a lot of fusion stones. You do get a lot of money. So one of the things I would say is don't worry too much. Unless when the daily cards come up, if something comes up that's really useful, then go for it. But the temptation can be to try and find these killer cards and invest heavily in them. And that's going to take a long time to get there. I would just instead spend a lot of time investing some money, some of your coins you've earned in your noble books, and just keep hitting your noble books every time you earn some dough. You can get that from some of your winnings from completing these challenges, but also just from winning games. And if you can just even if you haven't got much time to do a couple of games every day, then you can get quite a few noble cards, noble books. Sorry. One of the best times is when there's events on and they give you the noble book and they give you 3+1 random cards. So if you can save up a bit of money when you're getting near Easter or near Christmas, or I can't remember the other events, that those particular times they give you these bonuses, that means you get more random cards, and typically the return is much more. So you just keep getting lots more cards for your money. So it's great around those times to save up a little bit. But otherwise, just keep that flow of cash going. Also, depending what league you're in, when you do get enough rubies, then the mythic tomes are really good to get. I've never really bothered much with classic tomes or heroic tomes. I try and save up for the mythic tomes, and then you get some of the legendary cards that you need to get going. So a typical hand, I'll just show you some of mine. So this one, going back to this one, I've got a legendary card there, a couple of epics here, lots of common cards that you probably already got. This is a legendary card. It needs a good balance. It needs to have something where they connect together and flow well together. This is a rush hand, as you'll see. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 runners in there, 5 runners technically actually in there, to try and get over the line. Now rush hands are really good to get you just to get you some winning ways, because it's really hard to beat rush, to be honest. There are ways you can. But if you're going to rush, you need to have some things in place, unless you're going all out rush, just to kind of dominate the board a bit. Now my style is to dominate the board a bit more. I'm not very good at real rush, to be honest. A domination style is where you try and take out the other team, and then you progress your way up the board. So I use broomstick to help get rid of some of their units. Same for Toxic Sacrifice and Crimson Sentry. They also got Witches of the Wild. It's quite a lot of domination hands there. Now, Witches of the Wild, you've got to look out for your good connections. So Witches of the Wild works well with hairy chestnuts because you can use the witches, the wild witches on the hairy chestnut, draining it, and that does a good job. Siren of the Seas is really good because it gets rid of big units. I mean, it was really expensive, but it's often a finishing card. And that's one thing I would notice. It's really easy to build a hand with lots of domination cards where you think, oh, this is really good. But you can end up with a situation with your deck. It's just hasn't got any winners in it. You've got to win somehow. So you need these kind of cards to run across the line, or you need chipping cards, chip it away. You need some kind of strategy to actually get you across the line, because just dominating the field isn't so good unless you're playing a domination style, and I'll show you one of those. So here's my breakdown of cards. I don't use many winter ones at the moment. This is a really good domination hand, where between the retired commanders and these various different knights, combined with my frogs, which I can multiply as well, and I can grow them with Kindred Grace, or using the Acid Greenhorns combined with Soap Cleanse, that I can just fill the board quite quickly. And as you see, again, they're quite cheap cards, aren't they? 1 mana, 1 mana, 2 mana, 2 mana. And I'm really, this is quite a cheap hand. And the beauty of this one is if you can make it work, and it works a lot of the time, you can fill the board. And it's quite hard for them to deal with your just sheer size. But also, I still have Bladestorm in there because, to be honest, it's still, at the moment, the meta is currently still, frogs are still quite high up there. So toads, I mean, you have to kind of deal with those toads and other small units. Lots of people play rush hands that are based on Swarm of the East. I find I don't like those hands that much. They're good, and that can get you some good points. I just find them a bit boring. I like this hand. This is basically my army hand, really. It's all based around him. You don't have to have him at a high level. You just have to play him a lot. You keep spamming him on the board. You can keep growing him. But you need things. If you're going to do an army strategy, you need cards to advance the board. You need cards to do a bit of damage when you're not going to be able to use army, because, if he's played against next to another player, he loses his strength, and that's the last thing you want. So you need some ways, things like Broken Truce, Grey the Balancer I'm using in that way, Hunter's Vengeance, and Fell Flares to sort of clear the space. Hunter's Vengeance, one of those times where actually it's useful to sometimes take out some of your own cards, because you can then play your Council Army. I haven't used this for a while, you can see, because green prototypes has currently changed, and it is a bit more tricky to use at the moment, because it basically, you have to be careful how you use it, or it often gives an advantage to the enemy team, since they've sort of nerfed that. Frozen hands I find quite challenging to use. You see, it's more expensive. You have to use Gift of the Wise to get enough for it, and I've used Dawn Sparks. It's okay, this hand, because you can use Broken Earth Drakes to kind of do some major damage. To be honest, it's more of a hand I've been experimenting with. I don't often do winter decks, but the frozen, especially when you're starting out, the frozen system is really quite powerful. It's quite good. What else I got? This hand is surprisingly helpful. People don't like to use a lot of buildings or structures, because they can slow you down, so you lose speed. However, this one's quite nice because it slows them down first with Chateau de Cardboard, and that enables you sometimes to play your Mech Workshop. And Mech Workshop's a funny thing because it's quite easy to often stop, but if you play it with True Shot Post, and you make sure you put True Shot Post in the order before Mech Workshop, you can take out some of those. You can take out the things that are blocking the Mech Workshop, and then it's not so much of a concern. Or you could do the same with Chateau de Cardboard. Does a good job of clearing space. So this is another quite nice hand. I use this quite a bit, particularly for completing some of these challenges. Often there's challenges involved about buildings or growing. In fact, I think, was that now? And not token units, it works for that too. So it helps you complete those challenges. But this particular one's nice because you've got frontline engineers, or when you've got a few structures on the board, and Guardian the Lightbringer enables you to get more structures quite quickly if it's working. You can find yourself with some very large frontline engineers. We could add more strength with debug bug loggers, which I think is a really powerful card. And then Hearth Guards can win it across the line. So I quite like that hand too. So these are some of my strategies for now. Another running hand I'm currently employing. So I quite like, just with the Toad one, let me just go back to that. So just with Toad, the elevators can be quite good because in certain circumstances he can jump and get you up the board quickly, depending where the opposition players are. And in the same way, I quite like Elof the Ignited for doing the same thing. So he goes all the way up the board and pushes other people back, which gives you a nice space for Warfront runners or Leaf Patters to run into the base. So this one works quite well. It can be vulnerable to other rush hands, in fairness, but I just quite enjoy this one too. So as you see, again, most of my hands are quite cheap. You've got lots of low price cards. People sometimes even play even more aggressively than that, and they use even cheaper cards. But the key thing is get them leveled up as quickly as you can by just keeping that money coming in and spending it on those label books. The other thing I would say is think about combinations. What's going to work well together? So Eloth, for example, works nicely with green Gale Serpents because green Gale grows that one and that one at the same time. So to spare Dragoning, they can work nicely together. You've got Wind Makers, a bit like how I use my I clear the decks with some of my Shadowfen cards when I'm playing Ironclad. Things like Wind Makers I find very powerful. So that combination with those two, Flaming Steam, is quite nice for sort of clearing the decks and enable you to run in. There's much more complicated hands that involve a bit more sophisticated things. Sometimes they work really well and sometimes they don't. So my primal hand here, I use Celestial Summoners. It's really expensive, 8 whole mana, but actually does a lot of spawns a lot of units, and that can be really good if you put that in your back line and then use Terrifying Behemoths, or you could use Ubas around it and even strengthen it with Clap of Thunder. You can do some nice things. Now the danger with this hand is, although there's some really cheap ones to start off with, and I love playing Collector Merge, is like my favourite card really. I know that's a legendary. I tend to play that as my first go if I can, if it's possible, because you get penalised really, because it's only a 3 strength card at level 5, sorry, and it can be a problem. But actually, if you use that early on, you get quite quickly, you're getting really cheap cards coming through. So you can see this sounds quite nice because it's very cheap at one end, but it allows me for one expensive card here, which then powers these things. Terrifying Behemoth is really helpful. Now, obviously, there's a few legendary cards. You may not have them yet, or epic cards, but I would say they're good ones to invest in. So the other thing I'd say is just don't invest in everything. Try and focus on getting a one really good strong hand for level 1, level 2, whatever it is you're at, and try and level those cards up and make your way up. Yeah, another strategy I quite like. I don't think I've got a card like it at the moment. Let's have a look. No. So sometimes when I'm playing Shadowfen, I actually quite like Brood by the Cordia. I know that, Charlie, you've got that recently, and it spawns a lot of nests. So if you can get that near the enemy base, that you can actually finish off your enemy completely. All you need is that and like a cheap card, say Gifted Recruits, green Prototypes, whatever. You know, you could potentially get three dragon nests on the base, and they're powerful because although they're only 1 strength when they're spawned and they can be taken out easily, they have to be taken out easily or they produce a lot of dragons pretty quickly, and that can be really good unless they've got Blade Storm, in which case obviously it's easily defeated, or Siege Breakers is quite good for doing that. Anyway, so those are some of my top tips. I hope that's been helpful for you, particularly for you, Charlie, and anyone else. Please comment if you've got any questions or any thoughts about my decks I've been talking about there. And I'll be back soon with some actual footage of some games.